I'm also lucky enough to host a new podcast called Replay, where we get to talk with creators, executives, and community builders about how games move from products to culture.
Ready?
Hey everyone, welcome back to Replay. I'm Greg Off, and what you just heard was me on a stage at South by Southwest in March 2026, telling a room full of people about this show for the very first time. It didn't exist yet. It had a name, it had a North Star, but not much else. And a few minutes after I said those words, I sat down with two of the most important stewards on the history of our medium and had a conversation that, more than any other, is why Replay is the show it is now. The panel was called Eternal Icons, Tetris, Sonic, and the Art of Timeless Play. The two people on that stage were Maya Rogers, the CEO of the Tetris Company, the steward of the single best-selling game of all time, and Shuji Utsumi, the president and chief operating officer of SEGA, the company behind Sonic the Hedgehog and so many other great franchises. They've been close friends for nearly 20 years, and they sat down in front of a live audience to talk about what it actually takes to build something that lasts. Sitting with two people who have spent their careers on characters and games that refuse to age, hearing them talk about the weight of that stewardship, it made the case for exactly the kind of conversation I wanted to have every week. Past the press releases and the marketing campaigns, into the decisions, the people, and the moments that actually shape this medium. So today we're going to go back to that room. What you're about to hear is the panel, recorded live with a professional crew in one of the best rooms I've ever been in. Consider it a small piece of the origin story of Replay. I hope you really enjoy it, and let's get into it. Welcome, thank you for coming. I'm Greg Off. I am the owner and CEO of Offbase. We are a creative agency that spent the last 20 plus years laser focused in the game space, partnering with game makers to build the worlds around their IP. So from branding and campaigns to community and content. I'm also lucky enough to host a new podcast called Replay, where we get to talk with creators, executives, and community builders about how games move from products to culture, and that includes the collaborations, the risks and those long bets that keep beloved series feeling new. Quick show of hands before we get started. I'm just curious, how many of you here have played Tetris or Sonic the Hedgehog?
That's a silly question. I hope everybody's hands go up.
Oh, no, well, they have. But I've got a point. Okay. Absolutely, perfect. You've kind of, proved my point. The point of today's conversation is how some brands are able to stay present in our lives, whether your first encounter was, playing at an arcade, using a cartridge in your game system, seeing it in a movie, or even doom scrolling at 2 a.m. Seeing it on your social feed as a meme. And I'm super thrilled to get to explore that with two of my very favorite people, Maya Rogers, CEO of the Tetris Company, and Shuji Utsumi, President and COO of SEGA. I'm going to go ahead and do some intros, if that's okay. Are you guys okay with that? So under Maya's leadership, Tetris has evolved from, a legendary puzzle game, of course, into what is really a global entertainment and lifestyle brand, with acclaimed titles like Tetris Effect Connected, Tetris 99, of course, the Apple TV Plus film.
And Tetris Puyo Puyo with SEGA.
What's that?
Tetris Puyo Puyo with SEGA.
There you go. That's right. Puyo Puyo, of course. The Tetris also was recognized as the best digital brand at the Licensing International Awards. Maya's also the co-founder of Blue Startups, which is Hawaii's first venture accelerator, and she also serves on several nonprofit boards supporting community and healthcare initiatives. And then, of course, Shuji, he oversees Sega's global business strategy across Japan, the United States, and Europe. And, spanning like an amazing and still clearly going strong career, like 30 years plus. He's helped do things like launch the original PlayStation at Sony. He's held leadership roles at Disney Interactive. He ran product development at Sega in the mid-90s. And he's also co-founded Q Entertainment. And so today he's helping guide Sega's revival and expansion of those beloved franchises like Sonic the Hedgehog, among many others that I hope we can talk about today and maybe not talk about some, I think, for a new generation of players. Okay, so one more thing, and we're going to jump in, I promise. What really makes this conversation especially fun for me, and you guys will hear this in a second, is that Maya and Shuji aren't just industry peers and colleagues. They're actually, they've been the closest of friends for about 20 years. So, today we get to draw on that benefit of not only their professional experience, but also their long shared history as we talk about how legendary game franchises, stay fresh through collaboration and innovation. So Maya and Shuji, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, we're going to just jump right in. You guys ready? Okay. So this first question is for both of you. Tetris and Sonic were created in very different eras and cultural contexts, yet they both have remained relevant for decades, right? When you look at your franchise today, Shuji and Maya, what do you believe is the core idea or principle that has allowed it to endure for so long across so many generations? Ladies first?
Yeah, so Tetris was created in 1984 by Alexei Pajitnov in the Soviet Union, and really I think he created the perfect game, right? He created a game that is simple to play, that is difficult to master. It really speaks to our innate want and need to create order out of chaos. And so when he created it, it spread through Eastern Europe and then eventually made its way, to the UK and CES, where my father, Hank Rogers, discovered Tetris and brought it to the rest of the world. And really, I think it's the perfect game, and that's why it's still relevant today. But it's interesting because back in the 80s, my father always talks about a company called ASCII, which was the biggest publisher in Japan, and they had turned Tetris down because it was too retro. And so back then it was considered retro, but it goes, again, it's really the fact that it's a perfect game. So every generation that has touched it, when they play, everybody has a different experience. I grew up with the Game Boy and the NES, but if you talk to, somebody who's younger, they're playing, my friends actually play Tetris Puyo Puyo every night with their families, and this is now grade school kids. So it's just a different touch point. So making sure that the game is available through generations because the game is just perfect.
Hi. As Greg, introduced me, I've been in this industry for a long time, and looking back, checking Tetris and Sonic, video game industries has been evolving with the technology evolution. And when you see Tetris was #1 Game Boy title. That was an innovation. During that time, that was an innovation about how that puzzle goes really fast, and then, this appears the kind of, how do you call that, squares, but they disappearing boom. That was an amazing experience for kids at that time. Sonic, the fastest character game in the 16-bit days. So people got really excited about this new experience. And since then, we've been investing all these kind of titles. Your title. And then collaborating with talented creators. So of course when it was they were born, we somehow capturing the edge of technology and new experience. Then afterwards, it's like a constant somehow a feed of stimulation to the community. That's how I translate.
Yeah. Blast processing. If you know, you know. Thank you so much, guys. Let's talk about kind of legacy versus evolution. Maya, Tetris is often described as timeless, but timeless doesn't mean static. How do you decide what elements of Tetris can't be touched, they can't be changed, versus where experimentation or evolution are necessary?
Yeah, so I think going back to my earlier point of Alexei created the perfect game, so we don't want to mess with that, right? It's the mechanic of you see the Tetris pieces falling and you're clearing lines, and we're never going to mess with that. But we have come up with so many different variations over time. So if you look at the original game that he had created on the Electronica 60, for example, it had no speed, there was no scoring, and when the Game Boy and NES came out, single, double, triple Tetris, that was put in. Back then, I think there was no hold, right? And so now, today, you see we have a bag system. That means for every 7 pieces that come, that another eyepiece is gonna come, hopefully in the next 7, right? So you can kind of strategize how you play the game. So things like that have been implemented, and probably to the casual player, Tetris is still the same, but to a hardcore player, Tetris has evolved over time. It's kind of like when you look at how the movie industry's evolved, right? The original movies were black and white, no sound. It's still the same media, but today, it's completely different. So in a similar way, I think we make sure that Tetris is always remain true to its core, but we've allowed it to expand in so many different ways, like the Puyo Puyo Tetris collaboration with SEGA. That was. I'm going to plug him in every time. That was like a collab, right, that we never thought would work. Thinking about a Puyo Puyo, which is a very popular puzzle game in Japan, and let's put that together with Tetris, and so that players can actually play against each other. And it's become this really cultural phenomenon. We've got 2 versions of the game. We just launched the title on the 2S, and now people are playing it. Video streamers, right? VTubers are playing it, and so there's a whole resurgence of people playing. And so it's really, we've been able to make sure that, the other thing that we make sure is that the marathon game, which is sort of the leveling up to level 15, and you get to play through each level and it gets faster and faster, that play is available in every single game. So wherever you play, you get the classic Tetris experience.
Yeah, super cool, thank you. Shuji, Sonic has evolved continuously across gameplay, tone, graphics, clearly 2D, 3D. How do you modernize a character with such a strong identity without kind of losing that emotional connection that those longtime fans have of the brand and IP?
In a way, industry forced us to evolve because technology is evolving. Starting from 16-bit, title, 32-bit, 64. I don't know how many bits right now. I mean, that's lots of changes. Internet, mobile, all these, game is expanding the space. So to somehow adjust that kind of trend, we, our creators somehow trying to, keep the pace of, audience. And in my company, at SEGA, I always says lore and innovation. So somehow we respect the kind of sonicness. At the same time, we need to evolve to capture the audience. So certain craftsmanship at the same time, new trend, a bit like a fashion, right? I mean, you need to capture the audience interest. So it's easy to say, but it's really lots of work.
I tell Shuji all the time, I have a 5-year-old son, and he's obsessed with Shadow. He likes Sonic, but Shadow is where it's at.
It's cool.
And there was a period of time where we would it's my favorite. He would call me Amy Rose, and I would pretend to be Amy Rose, and he was Shadow, and we were like role playing. Oh my gosh!
You also have a daughter, right?
Yes.
Next movie is Amy. Stay tuned.
I love hearing about how he's such a creative guy. He's always thinking about how to evolve with the audience, and anyway, I love it.
Just a follow up to that, like because Sonic is such a precious brand, well-known brand. Do you feel safe, like trying to experiment or new things with the brand, or do you have to kind of say this is the core principle? Sonic goes fast. We always have to do this.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually a really good question because, because of the technology, evolution. I mean, now AI is getting to be really the big trend, but our audience is not ready that we use AI too much on Sonic.
Right. Yeah.
And our audience really love somehow craftsmanship of how we develop Sonic. So I mean, we are very careful. I mean, in a way. Yeah. But at the same time, as a company, I mean, we really need to, pursue, that technology just because game industry is evolving with the, evolution of technology. But talking about Sonic, I mean, we're very careful.
Thank you, Shuji. Okay, is there a question for both of you? So, both Tetris and Sonic, and we were just talking about, lifestyle brand and how things kind of go beyond just the games, because they now exist, far beyond games, right? There's film, music, fashion, live events, online communities. So, how much of that expansion is unintentionally planned, or versus you guys shaping it yourselves? Are the fans kind of the behavior building that, or is it cultural adoption?
I mean, it's definitely both. I think. For me, growing up with the Tetris brand and growing up around video games, I want to make sure that that experience is available for every generation to come, and how we engage with brands and games are so different from back in the 80s and 90s. And so for me, expanding Tetris beyond just a video game was so important to me. And so I think, you mentioned the Tetris movie, or you mentioned entertainment. We came out 3 years ago. I was at South by, and we launched the Tetris movie starring Taron Egerton. And that movie experience was significant because it was the first time that in the video games industry we highlighted people behind the scenes, right? It wasn't just about the Tetris. Well, there's no really story around Tetris because there's no characters. But I mean, I think that was significant, and the reason why that project came to be was that the story behind how Tetris came to the world, from a guy in the Soviet Union who created it, and he had no rights to the game, and all of a sudden this Dutch American guy comes out of nowhere on a tourist visa, knocking on the door of the Ministry of Games. Now, if you can imagine doing that today in like some North Korea, this is kind of insane that my father went out to a communist country without a proper visa and try to get this rights for the game. But this friendship that they found, right? It was two programmers coming together and finding this bond, this language of play, and again, it kind of goes back to how Tetris is the same thing, where it doesn't require culture, it doesn't require language. There's no separation, and so these two men found this bond, and because that story of friendship and people coming together was such an amazing human story, like that's what made the movie become what it is, today. And there was some hiccups along the way. We knew that the story was great, and we found a director that was going to direct it. The Me Too movement happened. Oh no, we're recording this. The Me Too movement happened, and then the project got put on hold. but really it was the story that kind of persevered. And so even though it took probably 7 years in the making from the very beginning, it finally launched on Tetris on Apple TV. And that was like one example of, it was intentionally, we were trying to create a movie because we knew the story was great, and it did persevere because, again, human side of the story. But it's combination, right? So there's also, for example, we have a Classic Tetris World Championship, the CTWC group. They started an online, I guess it was offline first, competition using the NES. And these are a group of guys that got together, and they started competing using the original NES, and it was very grassroots, and we were always kind of supportive of them. But all of a sudden, it became a phenomenon. They've got like 90 million views on YouTube. Some kid along the way came up with a controller scheme where instead of smashing buttons like we used to play, they found this mechanism. It's called the rolling. And so they wear like a glove, and then they roll the controller on their hand, so that now they're able to like reach like crazy amounts, crazy scores, to the point where a boy named Blue Scooty, who was 13 years old, crashed the Tetris game. Like nobody had ever done that before. And that also led to a documentary, Legendary Films, which we premiered last year. So it's a combination, right? We look at what's happening with our network of people, what's happening with our communities, but also we have to think about, okay, how do we grow the brand? What do we want to accomplish in the future?
Love it. Thank you. Shuji?
Wow. Okay.
Yeah?
Well, I believe the game is the art form of music, graphic, and interactiveness. So game has been having a kind of potential to really work with all these creators, and this time is actually getting to be very good. When we introduced PlayStation, for example, I picked up the game called Crash Bandicoot. And then I pitched the movie, actually producer level of a person, Crash Bandicoot, to be a kind of a TV show, whatever. That was an elevator pitch. I was treated like a shit. I mean, it's like, hey, game guy, you're like, now, hey, I mean, I'm talking to movie executives, producers, musicians, all these artists love to be a part of the game. So video game, I mean, it's a really good time. I mean, but potentially, game has that kind of power. And then culturally, what's really great is, this kind of, nostalgic, mentality, and also a new innovation kind of mindset. Creators want to be a part of it. So, including musicians and movie directors and producers. And I believe game has a kind of cultural power to really collaborate with all these kind of talents. So, we have a great, Sonic was a great example. We are having lots of discussion with the Hollywood people. And also even like talking with anime producers. Now anime is getting to having that kind of power too. So and community is somehow merging, somehow, interacting each other like a music, anime, game, and then sometimes, even like a fashion too. So people are doing some cosplay. That's a part of a fashion, and how can I say, cultural activities. So we need to somehow understand all that kind of movement, dealing with influencers to creators to somehow even like other agency, whoever. So that's where we are. And then game is the size of the industry, and also the characteristics of the product somehow gives us this kind of opportunity.
Yeah. Can either of you share an example where fan creativity or the community behavior pushed your brand in an unexpected or a direction that maybe you weren't aware of, but then ultimately embraced?
Well, I think my CTWC.
Yeah.
That was my example of a fan community becoming a much bigger thing than we ever thought, and it's, again, they're playing the NES version of Tetris, and it's like a whole movement now, so, yeah.
Yeah, now, a lots of different angle of, culture, esports somehow, coming up. We are working on, for example, virtual fight. I don't know. I mean, sometimes my PR people regulates me what to say, but I don't know if I can disclose or not. I don't know exactly, but I tell you anyway. I mean, we have virtual fight coming back. We are working on it. It's not just a fighting game, but it's lots of narratives behind it. So as I said, lots of potential collaborations. So I don't know which can be a kind of examples.
And the VTuber thing, maybe you could talk about.
Yeah, I mean, VTuber, we are working on VTuber also too. Like, working with talents. Like, they can, dance and sing. Watching, K-pop animation, like, oh shit, I mean, maybe we could have done better. So we are working on that kind of, cultural, experiment. But sorry for the bad language, because, I started my first, career in English in this video game industry. Yeah. So, I didn't know, instead of using very, we use F words every time, right?
All good.
So I thought that was a norm, but that was not the case. So I try to behave like executives, but sometimes in this cultural, environment, I feel more relaxed and use my, bad language. So sorry about that. Maybe you can translate by yourself.
I honestly thought that was a softball for you to talk about the original Sonic movie, where the first Sonic 3D renders weren't so great, and the fans.
Movie partner Neil Moritz, amazing producer. But however, saying so, first, as you remember, first trailer came out. It was so we called Ugly Sonic, popping
Ugly
up.
Sonic, that's right.
And then thanks to the community, creators, our Sonic creator, SEGA, said that's no way. But management, was saying, I was not a part of it, by the way. Management at the time saying like, hey, movie people were saying it, you follow the rule. And then, trailer came up, and then, actually a community somehow saved. Yeah. And then, movie, folks decided to change the character. But what's really amazing was that the head of marketing at the time saying like, hey, geek beats Hollywood, that's a great story.
Yeah, right.
So they are flexible, changing, it's like exceptional, but even they changed the date of release also too. Yeah. So, so that kind of, I was in the middle of, producing Sonic Movie 1 to join, somehow join SEGA. And then I really appreciated at the time the power of a community.
Yeah, right. Yeah, thank you, Shuji. Okay. So you're both now building, for audiences who may have not experienced the original games firsthand, and maybe they first encountered that IP through TikTok or streaming platforms or even a movie trailer. So how do you balance the expectations of your longtime super fans with the need to bring in those first-time new players who engage with the brand in a completely different way?
So for us, we're a licensing company, so we work with very many different companies that make Tetris for us, right? And they're kind of, I call them the subject matter experts. with Sega Puyo Puyo. For example, we came out with Tetris 99 with Nintendo, and that was kind of the battle royale type of game, and it really introduced Tetris to like a whole nother audience, right, of Nintendo Switch players, and also very hardcore. Like the game is still, people are competing. Like you can't even, if you guys are not like hardcore Tetris players, you'll get killed because they're like hardcore fans. But it's making sure that for us, because Tetris has been sort of a household name, we make sure that we're available wherever games are played. So that's one of the strategies that we have. And of course, if you're a launch title or close to launch, right, people are always going to think, oh, I know Tetris, and they're going to download it. And so the variations have changed so much. Tetris Effect is another example where we really took Tetris into a whole nother level, and Mizuguchi-san and Shuji used to, they were partners at Q Entertainment, and so this was like taking Tetris and like putting it together with music and this most amazing world of what you never thought possible you could do with a Tetris game. So with games, like we get to sort of experiment, and we've realized that there's room for lots of variations of Tetris. And again, I think going back to my earlier point, we do make sure that the marathon mode is available somewhere if you want that classic experience. But going back to like my kids, they haven't really seen me play video games, in the house because they're 5 and 6, and I don't really want them playing video games yet, except now they're starting to. But their view of Tetris was through like the Tetris board game, and we have the Tetris Tumble, and we're doing so many toys and merchandise that is different, very different from the video game experience. But there's something about, again, the feeling the tetraminos, the blocks, and you feel like you're connected to some innate want to create things, right, and break things. And so our kids know Tetris as like a toy. Until a couple of weeks ago, my daughter saw me playing Tetris on my Nintendo Switch 2. They will make sure they say the 2. This is very important. And my daughter's like, she always calls me the boss of Tetris. And she's like, you know what my mom does? She's the boss of Tetris. And then she finally saw me playing, and she was like, Mom, you are the boss.
Cool.
You are the boss. So it just depends on which generation, right? Like they're not playing video games, but like my son loves Sonic.
Yeah, I mean, nowadays people behavior change a lot.
Yeah.
People don't buy based on what we say. I mean, like manufacturers, I said, they just somehow react to what others people recommend. So the way we communicate to the audience is really getting to be complicated. Right now. I mean, it's a challenge for Sega right now. So for the traditional community, we somehow try to push engagement. But for the discovery side of our new community, we really need to work with kind of talents, good at, TikTok or, even like Instagram or these kind of, players, like a fashion industry. Fashion industry has been doing that kind of thing for a long time. And game industry, we need to be really good at, making a short video, all that kind of stuff also too. And then let the creators to announce promote titles. So that's kind of a new way of approaching to a new kind of audience. So that's where we are. But and also, as Maya said, it is important for us to have a kind of environment to be to where that people can find us easily. So working with these, kind of licensees, it would be sometimes very important. And talented licensee would actually, improve, brand image. So that's a kind of a way that we, we call this one approach like a transmedia.
Yeah,
so that's how we do.
Thank you. Awesome. Follow up, Shuji. So, with a long-running character like Sonic, there is this. I would imagine there's this pressure to constantly have to innovate, right? You got to keep up with generations of consoles and the power of the graphics and graphics cards and all that. So, that pressure to do something bigger, louder, all of that. How do you ensure innovation adds, meaning rather than just the noise, and it avoids diluting that core identity that makes, that IP special?
Yeah, I mean, luckily, SEGA has a lot of great IPs. I mean, great, in a way, nostalgia, great narratives, of IPs. So we are, my job is to recover SEGA. So Sonic, of course. We are, still working on it. But Persona is another, a great IP that we want to push. And then, as a matter of fact, this is 30th anniversary of Persona. My PR, says like, hey, Shuji, you should mention that. So I'm mentioning it. And then Crazy Taxi. It's gonna be cool. A lot cool. Stay tuned. We're gonna really, introduce soon. Sometime around June. And we've been working on Yakuza stuff. This one is gonna be next, Stranger Than Heaven, the kind of origin of Yakuza. Lots of great, amazing cast in the game. That's going to be announced this May. So, always, we say, I keep saying like lore, again, lore and innovation. Lore is very important. But at the same time, because people are, evolving. So having that kind of lore, but at the same time, you need to somehow surprise the audience to keep, loving our, IPs. So that's a challenge. So, sometimes, just because creators are, pretty much in love with the IP anyway. So, my role is to rather push innovation side.
Awesome. Don't forget Jet Grind Radio, Jet Set.
Jet Set. Ooh, we've been somehow, innovation side, we are still pushing. Trying to figure out the way.
Yeah.
So, that's fun stuff. So when I was with SEGA, last time, I was in charge of introducing Dreamcast. And then, during Dreamcast time, I was in charge of first-party stuff. So, like Crazy Taxi, Just a Radio, Space Channel 5, all these titles are kind of maybe too early to be there. But now I think it's getting to be the time to really appeal to the audience, I believe. And what do you think? I think it's a really interesting time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Pour one out for Dreamcast. So my Tetris thrives on simplicity in an industry that's often driven by, again, scale and spectacle. In today's environment, how do you advocate for restraint and elegance, which are strengths for specifically for Tetris, when working, with new platforms and partners and licensees?
Yeah, I think we don't have to compete with the AAA titles who are spending, because we're Tetris, right? The gameplay. Even when you're talking about the older games, like people just want good games, good gameplay. It doesn't have to be, super complicated, right? It's, again, if it's simple to play and then there's depth to it, like that's all you need. Look at the mobile gaming industry now. Bonkers, right? People are playing and spending so much money because it's entertainment. So that I don't think we ever had to compete with, and I think you were seeing too now that it doesn't not that it doesn't matter, but that there's room for every type of play. And I think for Tetris, because we're a simple game, we get to sort of partner with every kind of game there is, so we did like a collab with Minecraft last year. My kids are just starting to play, and they're like, we just want the regular Minecraft, don't give me anything else. They'll get to the Tetris soon. So we get to like partner up with different types of things that normally a video game wouldn't be able to, because we're sort of neutral territory. And even within like, last year we did a Red Bull collaboration where we had, hundreds of millions of cans, Red Bull cans across the world. And we collaborated on an esports game, which was played in 60 different countries, 7 million games played. And the finals was in Dubai in December. Thank God it was in Dubai in December, not today. But we were able to bring in 60 different winners from 60 different countries, and the 2 finalists got to play the first biggest drone game out there, 2,800 drones within the Dubai frame, which is like 490 feet or 150 meters tall. And so things like that we get to do. And we also came out with this collaborated can with a Red Bull. So Red Bull, like, their can is their baby, and they've never done anything with it. They don't touch it. But with Tetris, they're like, you know what? We can bend the rules. And so we made 10,000 of these, like, Tetris. You can play actually a Tetris game on the Red Bull can. Like things like that we get to do because we're sort of this safe brand. Everybody knows it. And so brands want to work with us and do things that they've never thought they would want to do. So answer your question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I have the coveted Slurpee Tetris.
Oh, yeah. We did a 7-Eleven Slurpee, which kind of led to the Red Bull can. And that also, like, fan favorite. And also we did a McNugget in China. McDonald's did a little Tetris game, and it went sold out in 2 days, 48 hours. And I I was in Saudi Arabia. I sat next to 2 people that had bought the thing on eBay, and I just happened to be like, oh my God, this went like a viral sensation.
That's hilarious.
So we got to get you the
big money. I need one of those. Thank you. Okay, we got, I think, one more question for you guys, and then we can open up for the audience if you guys have some questions. So for both of you, as leaders of globally recognized icons, right, in companies, do you see your roles more as builders of the future or protectors of the past? How do you balance the responsibilities in your day-to-day decision making, as kind of heads of the companies?
Well, I mean, that's easy. Answer is both in a way. The reason is for the Japanese members. As a matter of fact, lore of all these SEGA stuff is not that deeply, how can I say, shared. I think this is such a great value. So in that sense, it's not really protecting, but it's more like enhancing that kind of knowledge. That's the one direction. At the same time, as I say, lore and innovation side is always the way to capture a new audience. Yeah. So so builders in that context. In my responsibility, somehow I really advocate the kind of real value of SEGA, and also actually pushing that value actually for the future. So that, I guess, that's my role, to really make make SEGA brand shine again.
Amazing.
So shiny.
This jacket is a bit shiny.
So it's definitely both, right? You have to balance the past and the future. For me, I think I mentioned earlier, my father was the one that brought Tetris to the world, and also me being half Japanese, respecting the past and like all that's come before is so important. But it's more for the community of Tetris players, right? Like people love Tetris, like they have such fond memories. And like my favorite thing of all is when I meet people and every single person who's played Tetris has a story. And that story is of, this is the one game that I played with my mom, or this was the one, like we don't play games, but we love Tetris, or I used to play Tetris, before exams because it would just help me regulate, and so we're looking into like so many things, like mental wellness is like a big thing that we're looking into. Video games get such a bad rap. But we know that we've done independent, like clinical research that has proven that Tetris can help reduce PTSD, for example. And if that could be something that, I could put like my legacy behind to help other people, like those are the things that really drive me. And I think really coming back to how do we make sure that the joy of playing games is preserved and spread as much as possible is what I think about, right? So it's that. The reason why do I do what I do every day is because I love what I do and I love to spread the joy, and why do anything else in life, right?
Amen.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, we have some time. We have about 10, 11 minutes to open up for the audience. If you'd like to come up and ask some questions, that would be great.
All right. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. Hi.
Don't be nervous.
I'm already out. Sorry. All right, it's already too late. Oh, by the way, hi, Greg.
What's up, Anthony?
I am as you can tell, big shirt, huge SEGA fan. And I guess for right now, for Utsumi-san, I had a few questions specifically about Sonic when it comes to remakes and remasters, because you see like Capcom doing all these remakes of the Resident Evil games and all this kind of stuff. But when it comes to Sonic, you usually see whether like an upgraded port like Sonic Colors Ultimate and stuff like that, and that sort of thing. And is there, I guess my question would be, assuming because you don't want to mess with what's going on, like the original games, is that like the key thing for Sonic, especially? Would you rather have newer games and if you're going to bring back older games, you just remaster or port them over? And like, is that like the key thing when it comes to bringing back old content for the Sonic community?
Thank you for asking about Sonic future. We have a kind of future plan of what kind of game we provide to the audience. In a way, we always want to stimulate in the right way. We believe in the right way. So sometimes we do side-scroll kind of game, adventure game, sports kind of game, so we touch on these kind of areas. So again, I need to be a bit careful about the future, how much I can say, but we are working on something, people really wants to, community wants to have.
Don't break NDA. Don't break NDA.
Really, again, even though we are, somehow coming back to a certain genre, we want to really, need to include sonicness and innovation at the same time. So that's a kind of approach, and up until 5 years later, we have a very interesting lineup, so including something really wild. Some game is more like a family oriented stable, but including a wild one also too. So I don't know if it is a good answer or not, but that's where we are.
But is Sonic your favorite game out of Sega? Because you're wearing a Sega.
I have a lot of favorite games from Sega, and if I can go off, I won't. But the only other thing I would say, if you're considering for the future of Sega or anything, like one franchise I would like to see come back, Too Spicy, if you ever heard of that from the arcades. So I would love to see that come back in some way, shape, or form. So, yeah.
Wow. Thank you for that input.
Too spicy.
Hi, I'm Pedro. I'm from Brazil. I also have a 5-year-old, and he is insane about Sonic. But mine already plays video games like every weekend with me because I'm also a huge gamer. My boy Ichiban from Like a Dragon is like right here. But I actually work for a company that developed a technology that tracks culture. And we worked with the Supercell team for Squad Busters and Sonic collaboration. While researching that space, that cultural space, we found that, well, there's a lot of creativity, there's a lot of passion, but also, as always, from a franchise like that, there is some toxicity. Like there are, the hardcore toxic fans, which is a form of love, but it can be tricky. How do you deal with that? Like from a standpoint of such relevant and culturally big franchises?
I need a lecture, as a matter of fact. I mean, it's really tough. I mean, that's a really good question. Yeah. Some, vocal minority really sometimes ruin the whole, community, kind of atmosphere. So that's being for a kind of a big theme for many, companies, having funds. So it's in a way enhancing, great funds at the same time, somehow protecting us. Like, every word we make, fans that, kind of talk. I mean, I can't say talk. I mean, some, big advocates, can attack us. So, if the fans say something for us, sometimes it's better. So, trying to create that kind of environment. But, we try to have a position to be honest. And then these, we do not want to somehow manipulate too much, no. But saying so, sometimes it's a big challenge. I mean, absolutely, that's a big challenge.
Those fans are passionate.
For better or for worse.
Yeah.
I think the Tetris community in general, people are nicer to each other. When I was in Dubai, people came up to me and they said, I've never been in a part of a community where we're so supportive. And it could just, again, it's not a violent game, so that could be the nature of it. But all you can do is really, right, believe in what you believe in and stand up for what you stand up for. We've done things where people are posting, how could you post this on International Women's Day? And I'm like, because we support women and we support everyone, you can't backtrack from what you believe in as a company. And so I think as long as as a company you feel like you're doing the same right thing, but sometimes it could backfire, right? Like we did something with a famous influencer and our community was pissed, and that was like a learning experience. So you can only do what you want, what you can do, I guess. But
yeah, we had a big trouble on Yakuza stuff, right? For using some certain actor. We didn't really expect that. Some scandal happened in Japan, and then somehow he had a kind of big, going through a lot of sacrifices, and now he's coming back. He was coming back, so we decided to use him. But in Japan, that was okay. But for some reasons in the U.S., it was a big, fire. So that was a really difficult time. We don't know exactly how we gonna, cope with it. So we are still learning process.
America's becoming okay with those kinds of people now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, before I start, would it be okay for me to record your response?
Sure. It's already being recorded.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Clearly, I'm too fun-sized for this microphone, but I'm Gretchen from the Philippines, and my day job is putting brands and game titles together, like your example for Red Bull and McDonald's. And at night, I produce films on an individual capacity. And so my question for you is, for the Tetris movie, which is enjoying great ratings on Rotten Tomatoes, what were the objectives to set out on that big of a project? And how were you able to rationalize the investment that you had to put towards that? And do you continue seeing returns on that investment into the movie?
Yeah, so I mean, really, the investment comes from the movie studio, and you know, this was with Apple, right? So they're putting up all the money with Marv Studios as their partner. So for us, it was about telling the story of Tetris, which was again a fascinating story. And you know, growing up with it, I knew that it was going to be an amazing story. And so I think that's what really helped us push the movie through and the project to completion. I don't know if that answered your question, but for us, I think the fact that it lives on Apple TV, like it didn't get the most amount of people watching it, but that's Apple's way of, you know, that's their way. And I think the pros is that it's always going to live in Apple, and all of everything that they make is like such quality, and it doesn't get buried. So it's always going to be amongst the few, you know, great things that Apple has come out with. So I think it has, you know, transpired to many different things. Like people watch the movie. If you have watched a movie, you know, it opens up, again, a whole world of experiences that you never thought, like Tetris, like what is Tetris? Like everybody who's seen it, they know the story of it. So I think that has helped us in you know, in other businesses, for example. There's just not like a correlation, like one-to-one correlation, for example. I don't know. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, I think we don't have time for like one more question, maybe two if they're fast.
I'll be really quick. I did want to make a little comment. My son made Tetris in Redstone on Minecraft, and I was very proud of him for doing that. But
amazing.
The question I really wanted to ask is, this week I've been to a lot of panels where people are talking about hyper-reality, AI, everything that's coming, and I find myself going and playing Dreamcast or like getting really nuts on iOS Tetris, and I think that there's something there with that visceral connection that people have to these old games and to the way that these are. How are you connecting that? Like, how are you recognizing the difference between this content that people have access to now on such scale, but knowing that there are people who, even if they're not big gamers, are coming back to your IP because there's something that connects with them at that level?
Yeah, I think I may have touched on this earlier, but you know, it's making sure that wherever games are played, that our brand, you know, is available and discoverable. You know, I think in the mobile space, it's all about getting featured, and so you know, our partner works hard trying to get featured as much as possible because that really does help with recognition. Yeah, and then you know, word of mouth is another one, but. You know, try to be everywhere your players are going to be at, and that's what we try to do.
Yeah, for the production, I mean, to improve the efficiency, to support craftsmanship, in AI is inevitable. You have to use it for the efficiency. But some area right now, lots of cultural, ethical discussion is about how are you going to really use for generative AI for the final product or not, whatever. In China, no issue. I mean, people don't really care. I mean, the creator side, also a consumer side. But US, it's like a huge debate. Japan in the same way. So, but at the same time, new technology is going to sometimes, gives you a new way of playing or, somehow spending time. So, I mean, it's big challenge for a company to really figure out how the properly using the AI.
And I just have one segue from that is, we are on the verge of having infinite content, and so how do people come back to like real content?
Well, I mean, what's really interesting is if one thing happens, another thing, the kind of opposite happens too. Now people, if you see the music industry, like vinyl sales, more than, CD sales. I mean, people like to sometimes own your own stuff. So there are a lot of, people are somehow having a kind of, counter culture. Pokemon card is, popular so much, today. Owning is getting to be a kind of a, interesting value too. So, I mean, I see the trend like that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My husband got a bunch of baseball cards, at Amazon.
Hello, nice to meet you guys. I'm Bruna. I am a sports presenter for Brazil, and I hosted the Hedgehog Tetris over there in my country. And there's any plans for new collaborations and or initiatives for Brazil, and we have a huge and passion community, and I just want to say you're inspiring because you're a woman in this gaming brand, huge gaming brand, so I'm really happy to be here.
Oh, thank you.
Well, we have a Roblox game, Sonic is appearing there. Brazil is number 2 traffic. So, great. Thank you very much. I heard that, people in Brazil think, Sonic is Brazilian. That's really cool. So, for long history, Brazil has a unique history of, long history of games, including arcade. So for us, LATAM is a very important market, and understanding there are lots of, fans there. So, financially, it doesn't really make sense to have a booth in a Brazil game show, whatever, but, we'll do it anyway because, the fans there are waiting for us.
I just want to say I love Brazil. I went there a long time, maybe 15 years ago. All over the country, though. Love. I think Alexei Pajitnov actually went there last year or 2 years ago, and I know that there's a huge community of gamers, and so anyway, thank you so much for your comments. I think it's really important that women have representation because we are so much more capable. Just kidding. But we're gamers too, and so it's important that we're out there talking, and we can be whatever we want to be. And so thank you for your comments. I love you, and thank you, Brazil. And I want to see pictures of the Red Bull Tetris event that you did, because you guys, the things that they did around the world, amazing. Even Red Bull headquarters didn't get to see some of it until after the fact. So I'd love to see pictures. Thanks.
Thank you. But I do have one last closing question for you guys, if that's okay. So at the heart of both Tetris and Sega is really undeniably a love of play, which is a really strong concept. So in your day-to-day lives, both of you, what do you do to keep that sense of play, and fun alive for yourselves and also the people around you?
Shuji and I get to travel the world, and we get to see each other. We don't even know we're in the same country, and we're like, oh my gosh, what are you doing here?
Yeah, traveling around, definitely, and talking with the people there. Yeah. Always, stimulates us. And for my side, we have a studio. There are lots of creative guys, and then talking with the creative people, that really helps. So, that's. And then going to music, live show. So always trying to get the inputs from various aspects.
Awesome.
And playing game too.
Can we do one more question, or all right? Come on.
But I wasn't done with mine.
Oh,
okay,
I'm sorry.
So I was gonna say no. Please come up. Please come up. But life is short. Do what you love. Everybody in the industry is in the industry because they love video games.
Absolutely.
I love that. And so for me, it's living in the moment, living in the present. Be vulnerable and be authentic, and guess what? You get to have great friends if you're nice to people. Be nice.
Thank you so much. Sorry about that. Such a fan. Sonic was my first game. In Brazil, I had a console called Master System, and it was my first game ever, so it made me a gamer, and it's all I can think about when I think about games, so thank you so much for that. And Tetris was my father's favorite game, so when he gave me a Game Boy, it came with Tetris, and he was like, can I play? Because he had never played before. And he played it over and over, and he said, okay, I have to get a game up for myself, so he bought one. I didn't live with my father. And when I went to his house, the Game Boy was in the bathroom. Right where the magazines were supposed to be back in that day, he had the Game Boy with Tetris, and he said, that's where I play it, in the toilet. And I don't think that's something that is only from him, because Duolingo is making a huge campaign in Brazil right now about people that study in the bathroom. So, how do you do a game? Tetris, I think it's amazing. It's one of my favorite games as well. But how do you make it so addictive, but also it's like a therapy? And that's
It's funny. My household also had a Game Boy in the bathroom.
Yeah, same. Guilty
And this
as
was,
charged.
So every time you go in the bathroom and then you find out somebody else, got the higher score. Yeah. Sorry, your question was, how do you make sure to come out with games that are
addictive, but at the same time they like therapy.
Yeah.
They make you feel good.
Yeah. I mean, if you ever met Alexei Pajitnov, he is a mathematician, he's a scientist. This is what he thinks about. It's all numbers, it's all formulas. He's constantly playing games, he's constantly playing other types of puzzle games and casual games, and that's the world he lives in. And so really, I think his concept, he has created many, many different games, but Tetris was the one that was just simple, right? He liked this other game called the Pentamino, which was physical wooden blocks, right? And he's like, well, what if I made it simple and just made it 4 blocks instead of 5, and simplified it. And so it took that genius mind to think of something that was so sort of simple, but I think because it's simple and everybody can play easily, but the depth of it, right, is deep. And so that's the magic, right, that I think has kept Tetris going.
As a matter of fact, because of this addictiveness, the game business has been somehow criticized for a long time. Now, new science somehow reevaluate how the, gameplay is going to influence your, kind of mindset, educate, for kids or, even people So there are some of the researches, how the, gameplay is going to influence your, psychology, psychology kind of feel area. So game design wise, we didn't plan too much. We didn't know too much about it. Now we are starting to learn, how it's going to be good or bad. Designers, game designers, as Maya just mentioned, trying to make things really, emotionally, sucked in that kind of field. So that's the kind of art of interactivity, right? So that's a group of people, we do.
Thank you so much. Again, such a fan.
Thank you. And I want just, I know we're past time. Thank you guys for sticking around. Thank you, Shuji and Maya, for coming. Really appreciate that. And that was Maya Rogers and Shuji Utsumi, live from South by Southwest 2026. I'll be honest, I wasn't sure what to expect walking onto that stage, but something about being in that room with two people who have spent their careers thinking about why certain games and characters stay with us forever. It stuck with me. It's a big part of why this show exists in the form it does now. That question, what makes something worth coming back to, is really at the heart of everything Replay is trying to be. If this is the first episode of the show you've heard, welcome. There's a full catalog behind this one now. Conversations with Amir Satvat, Van Burnham, Cord Smith, Michael Hume, Jack Buser, Ralph Koster, and Mark Nash. All worth your time. And plenty more on the way after that. Follow or subscribe to Replay on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen. Everything is at replaypodcast.com. And if the show is doing something for you, the best thing you can do is tell one other person about it. I so appreciate it. I'm Greg Off. Thank you for being here.